The question of mercy begins in the quiet after battle, when the stars seem to hold their breath. Wrecked alien ships drift through space. Broken metal, glowing like dying embers. Human warships stand untouched, weapons still aimed. Crews waiting for a single command. Inside the main human flagship, the bridge lights are low. Officers watch, silent screens filled with debris and frozen fire. No one speaks. They all know the war should be over. Yet something heavy sits in the air, thick and unsettled. A weak signal suddenly breaks the silence. The enemy command ship, barely alive, opens a channel. The image flickers, showing an alien commander wounded and afraid. Its voice trembles as it asks for mercy, using careful words learned too late. The human bridge does not react. All eyes move to the Admiral. He stands still, hands behind his back, face calm but unreadable. He does not answer. He lets the silence stretch, turning seconds into pressure. The alien commander speaks again, louder now, begging. It claims the war is lost, that further death is pointless. It says surrender is offered. It asks for mercy as if the word alone should save them. The Admiral finally moves. He does not look at the screen. He looks at a control officer and gives a quiet order. The main display changes, filling the bridge with recorded images from earlier days of the war. Civilian ships appear on screen, slow and unarmed. Refugee transports packed beyond safety limits. Emergency lights flashing. Distress signals screaming into empty space. The footage shows alien weapons firing anyway. The bridge grows colder as escape pods scatter like sparks. Some are hit. Some spin helplessly into darkness. The recordings continue without mercy, showing moments the galaxy tried to forget. The Admiral's voice is calm when he speaks, steady and controlled. He asks a single question, simple and sharp. He asks where those civilians were going. He asks what threat they posed. The alien commander hesitates. Its eyes shift. It offers excuses about strategy and fear. It says the civilians were in the way. It says losses were acceptable. The words fall flat in the human silence. Human officers feel anger rise, but the Admiral remains still. His face does not change. He orders more footage. Names scroll across the screen. Ages, family groups, final signal times. The enemy commander starts to shake. It realizes humans recorded everything. Every death. Every ignored plea. The Admiral lets the truth speak for itself, knowing facts can cut deeper than weapons. Outside, the human fleet waits, engines humming softly. No missiles launch, no lasers fire. The delay becomes unbearable. The enemy ship drifts powerless, trapped by human patience. The alien commander cries out again, begging louder now. It promises cooperation, trade, peace. It swears the past cannot be changed. It pleads for forgiveness. The Admiral finally turns toward the screen. His eyes are hard, not cruel, but unbreakable. He reminds the enemy that humans value civilians above victory. He reminds them that mercy is earned, not demanded. He says, humans remember. They remember faces, names, and voices lost in the dark. He says this battle ended long before today, when civilians were chosen as targets. The bridge remains silent as his words sink in. The enemy understands too late that humans do not fight for pride alone. They fight for those who cannot fight back. The Admiral ends the transmission without giving an answer. The enemy is left waiting, trapped between hope and fear. The question of mercy hangs unresolved, heavier than any weapon, as humanity decides what justice will look like. The enemy command ship was silent as human marines moved through its holes. There was no resistance, no last stand. The war had drained the will to fight from every corner of the vessel. Enemy officers stood aside, watching humans pass with disciplined precision. They expected cruelty. They expected revenge. Instead, they saw control. Wounded enemies were treated. Fires were put out. Systems were stabilized to prevent loss of life. The absence of rage was unsettling. Across the battlefield, surrender spread like a slow wave. Enemy ships powered down, one after another, transmitting codes of compliance. Human forces accepted each surrender carefully, logging every crew, every weapon, every system. Nothing was rushed. Humanity's was not collecting trophies. It was collecting responsibility. The galaxy watched as the most feared human fleets behaved more like guardians than conquerors. On nearby worlds, civilians trapped under enemy control saw human rescue teams arrive. Not soldiers first, but medics, engineers, and supply ships. Children were pulled from rubble. Refugees were evacuated with care. Even alien civilians received aid without hesitation. News feeds exploded across the stars. Humanity was not choosing who deserved to live based on species. Innocence was enough. The enemy commander, now under guard, watched these reports in silence. Its empire had ruled through fear for generations, believing terror was strength. Yet here stood humanity, victorious beyond doubt, choosing restraint in the moment when brutality would have been easiest. The commander finally understood the mistake that had doomed them. They had targeted civilians, believing it would break human resolve. Instead, it had sharpened it. On the human flagship, the Admiral prepared his final address. Not to the enemy, but to the galaxy. He stood before the camera, uniform plain, posture steady. He did not speak of triumph. He spoke of cost. He named worlds lost, transports destroyed, families erased. He made no effort to dramatize. The facts were enough. He explained that humanity did not seek dominance, but safety. That war had been forced upon them, not chosen. That civilians were not shields, not leverage, not acceptable losses. They were the line humanity would never allow crossed. His voice remained calm, but every word carried weight earned through sacrifice. The Admiral announced the formation of an interstellar tribunal. Evidence would be shared. Trials would be public. Justice would be slow, careful, and fair. The guilty would be punished. The innocent would be released. This was not mercy given freely. This was accountability enforced with strength. The galaxy listened, and for the first time, truly understood human power. As the broadcast ended, the Admiral returned to his private station. There, a long list scrolled silently across the screen. Names, ages, civilian registry numbers, final transmission times. Thousands upon thousands. He watched without blinking. This was the part no one else needed to see. This was what guided every order he had given. A junior officer hesitated before speaking. He asked if the Admiral regretted not destroying the enemy when he had the chance. The Admiral answered quietly, destruction would have been easy. Memory was harder. Humanity did not need another graveyard in space. It needed a warning written into history. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. Former enemy allies distanced themselves. Neutral powers opened talks with Earth. Trade shifted. Borders redrew themselves without human force. Everyone had seen what happened to those who targeted human civilians. No empire wanted to be next. The enemy commander was transferred to a secure holding station. As it was led away, it asked one final question. It asked if humans would ever forgive. The Admiral paused before answering. Forgiveness, he said, belonged to the families who had suffered. Humanity's duty was not to forgive on their behalf. It was to remember for them. The war officially ended soon after, but its lesson endured. Humanity had not won by erasing an enemy from existence. It had won by exposing them to truth, judgment, and consequence. The galaxy learned that day that humans do not forget civilians, do not excuse their harm, and do not confuse mercy with weakness. Among the stars, a new understanding settled in. Ask humans for mercy if you must, but never give them a reason to remember. The enemy command ship floated helplessly as minutes passed, with no answer. Inside it, fear spread like poison. Systems were failing, power was low, and every screen showed the same thing. Human warships in perfect formation, silent and patient. The enemy commander had fought many species before, but none had ever waited like this. No threats, no insults. Just silence. It was worse than violence, because it left room for memory, and memory was now the enemy's greatest weakness. On the human flagship, the bridge remained calm. The Admiral stood at the center, watching stars drift past, shattered hulls. He remembered the first reports from the war's early days, When civilian transports vanished along safe routes that had been shared during peace talks, those ships had carried families fleeing border worlds, trusting the rules of war would protect them. They had trusted wrong. Humanity had learned then that survival did not come from trust, but from preparation. The Admiral ordered another channel opened, not to the enemy commander, but to the entire enemy fleet. His voice was steady as he spoke, explaining nothing emotional, only facts. He named locations, times, and ship IDs. He described how civilian beacons were logged and tracked, how every destroyed transport had been catalogued. Humans did not scream when it happened. They studied it. They planned. The enemy fleet listened as their own crimes were turned into evidence. The enemy commander tried to interrupt, claiming the attacks were mistakes caused by chaos and fear. The Admiral did not argue. He simply played audio recordings of enemy officers giving direct orders to fire. The bridge speakers carried those voices clearly, cold and certain. The enemy commander fell silent, knowing lies had no place left to hide. Around the battlefield, smaller enemy ships powered down weapons without being told, their crews suddenly aware of how deeply they had misjudged humanity. Human officers watched the reaction closely. This was not just a victory. It was a lesson being delivered across the stars. The Admiral believed war was not only about destroying fleets, but about shaping what came after. If the galaxy was watching, then it would learn that humans answered cruelty with memory, and memory with consequences. The enemy commander spoke again, weaker now. It asked why humans had not attacked earlier, when victory was already certain. The Admiral answered honestly. Humans waited because civilians still lived on occupied worlds. Reckless destruction would only repeat the same crime. Humanity had adapted its war plans, using precision strikes in isolation instead of genocide. The enemy realized then that humans had fought with restraint, even while burning with rage. That realization broke something inside the enemy commander. It had believed humans were driven by emotion and would lash out blindly. Instead, they had done the opposite. They had turned grief into control. The commander understood too late that humanity's greatest weapon was not firepower, but discipline. Outside, human ships began moving, but not to attack. Rescue vessels detached from the fleet, heading toward damaged civilian habitats and drifting escape pods, human and alien alike. Medical bays were prepared. Aid drones launched. The enemy fleet watched in disbelief as humans prioritized saving lives instead of claiming total destruction. This act spread confusion and shame through enemy ranks faster than any broadcast. The Admiral watched the rescue operations begin, his expression unchanged. He knew mercy shown too early meant nothing, but mercy shown with strength became a message no one could ignore. The enemy had asked for mercy, but first they would be forced to witness what real responsibility looked like. Justice, for humans, was not quick. It was thorough, and it remembered civilians above all else. As the rescue ships vanished into the wreckage field, the enemy commander realized the truth. The war was not ending, it was transforming, and whatever judgment humanity chose next would shape the galaxy for generations to come. The battlefield no longer felt like a place of war, but of judgment. Human rescue ships moved carefully through the wreckage, pulling survivors from broken hulls. While combat fleets held position, the enemy command ship remained surrounded, its engines dead, its fate suspended. Inside it, officers whispered in fear, knowing every second of waiting was another reminder that humans were deciding, not reacting. On the human flagship, tension rose quietly. Some officers believed the enemy should be destroyed now, before they could ever threaten civilians again. The Admiral listened to every argument without interruption. When they finished, he spoke with measured clarity. If humanity destroyed a helpless enemy without forcing them to understand why, the galaxy would remember only the destruction, not the reason. Fear alone would teach nothing. Memory, however, could change behavior forever. The Admiral ordered a full system-wide broadcast. Across nearby sectors, neutral worlds, trading stations, and hidden observers received the signal. The enemy commander's image appeared on countless screens. Stripped of authority and pride, the Admiral addressed the galaxy, stating that the enemy had asked for mercy. He explained that humans respected mercy, but only when it protected the innocent, not when it shielded the guilty. The broadcast shifted to scenes of occupied human colonies. Citia's Borned schools destroyed. Evacuation lines bombed. Each image carried verified data, leaving no room for denial. The Admiral spoke of restraint, explaining how humans had limited their attacks to avoid civilian harm, even when it cost them lives and time. This was not weakness. It was discipline born from values the enemy had ignored. The enemy commander collapsed into silence, overwhelmed by the scale of exposure. Its empire had relied on fear and secrecy, but humanity had dragged its crimes into the open. Around the galaxy, alliances began to fracture. Neutral worlds withdrew support. Trade routes closed. The enemy empire was falling apart without a single human shot fired. Finally, the Admiral turned directly to the enemy commander. He offered a choice that carried real weight. Total surrender, full cooperation, and acceptance of judgment by an interstellar tribunal formed under human oversight, or refusal, followed by a complete military erasure. No negotiation, no delays. The choice was clear, and the consequences permanent. The enemy commander understood that surrender meant survival, but also truth. It would have to face the families of the civilians it had ordered killed. It would have to watch its empire judged by the very standards it had once mocked. Its voice shook as it asked whether mercy would truly exist after surrender. The Admiral answered without hesitation. Mercy, he said, was not something begged for at the end of a war. It was something earned by protecting the innocent from the beginning. Humanity could offer survival, medical care, and fair judgment. It would not offer forgetting. The civilians would be remembered. Always. Silence followed. The enemy commander closed its eyes and gave the surrender code. Across the battlefield, enemy ships powered down weapons and opened hull access. Human forces moved in, precise and disciplined, securing vessels without unnecessary force. No cheers echoed across the fleet. This was not victory to celebrate. It was responsibility being accepted. As human marines boarded the enemy command ship, the galaxy watched the final moments of an empire that had misunderstood humanity. The Admiral stood alone on the bridge, watching the stars beyond the screen. He knew the hardest part was still ahead. Judgment would take time. Healing would take longer. But one truth was now clear to all who watched. Mercy was not a weakness in humanity. It was a choice, made only when strength and memory stood behind it.